Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly wrap. Mirko, how are you, my friend? How are you going?
I'm tired, mate. You got me out of bed at 8 o'clock in the morning to do a weekly wrap. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, well, we had to start early this morning. We've got a busy day ahead. And, mate, one thing I will say, Melbourne, autumn, and the weather outside is absolutely superb. That crispness in the air, the freshness, it is a great time to be alive.
Yeah, see a little bit of frost on the grass this time of year, which is nice. It's actually nice to be alive, and you certainly know you're alive when you walk out of the house in the morning. That's for sure.
Absolutely, mate. And this time of the year too, mate, the fun with the leaves, the amount of leaves in our street at this moment in time, it's this forever going battle, and you see every household trying to win the fight. I'd like to let them know that there's no chance of winning that fight. You're going to lose.
My therapist is building a new wing on his house off the back of my fight with the leaves. Just calm down. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
refueling the blower daily.
absolutely, mate, absolutely. Now it's been an extraordinary few weeks in markets, mate. Okay, it's probably been. I've been doing this now for 30 plus years, and it's probably been one of the most volatile periods in markets, both on the downside and the upside from that point of view. And there's some extraordinary numbers coming out. And it's hard to believe where we're at today. I guess from that point of view, given that it's now the 2nd of May, it'd be great if you could take us through and give us a bit of a summary of what transpired and where we're at.
Yeah, for sure, and I completely concur. We've had some crazy stuff going on in markets, I mean, I look at what's happened this week, for example, and we've got Friday to trade here in Australia. Still, we have the markets haven't opened, but the US was up last night about zero point 0.6, so it was a positive night. So the indications are we'll end up with five green days in Australia
Wow.
this week. So far for the first 4 days in Oz, we're up 2.3. The Nasdaq in the US up 1.8, and the S&P 500 up 1.42. I know that's only 4 days of trading, and we shouldn't get too excited. But when we talk about extraordinary numbers, Luke, you will recall that you and I had a bit of a chit chat on the weekend of I think it was the 5th and 6th of April, and the markets were
Hmm.
sort of having somewhat of a moment. And after Saturday morning, we saw what happened in the US overnight. We decided we should do a bit of a market update and have a chat to clients on the 7th of April, the Monday morning, which I think was good and worthwhile. And one thing that clients appreciate is, regardless of whether the news is good, bad, ugly, you still need to provide that data and explain to people what's going on. And one of the things we did say in that update was it's an extreme period of volatility, and now is not the time to make silly decisions and emotional decisions. It's more a chance to sort of reset and check in on where you're at from a portfolio and a complete asset position. So I'll hit you with some numbers that I've just put together this morning. The All Ords since that morning of the 7th of April is up 11%. The S&P 500 in the US is up 12. The Nasdaq is actually up 16% during that period of time. Now, what I'm trying to illustrate here is that is a movement. That's not even a month. So where are we at today? The 2nd of May, and we're talking from the 7th of 6. So it's short of 20 odd days, and the market has moved so much in that space of time. And going back to your point about not having remembered a period of volatility like this, it certainly has been a little bit like that. So should we sort of pop the champagne corks and sort of give it a bit of we're back? I don't know that we're back, but when I look at the longer term numbers, they're starting to look a little bit more respectful. And even the All Ords in Australia for the last 12 months, we're up 6.5% now. In the US, they're up 11. Nasdaq's up 13. So I think the markets have stabilized a little bit, but I do believe that given the goings on of particularly in the US, that we will continue to see this volatility. And don't be surprised if we have a pullback and then another bounce and the like. So, for those that feel like they're in for a bit of a wild ride, I think we are going to continue to experience that. Would be my thoughts. But I just thought I'd share those numbers because they really stand out a bit. Being so big.
I guess when you think about that, Mirko, the cause of the market volatility was on the back of Liberation Day from the United States. So the Trump administration's decision to go and impose tariffs at a universal level, and even apply it to penguins for God's sake, meant that we were going down a pathway which was changing the way the world operated, particularly from a global trade perspective. What we've seen the Trump administration do is pare that back. But we've seen it pare back in the sense of not that we're removing the tariffs or not that we've made the wrong decision, but we're putting a 30-day hiatus on these tariffs from that point of view, or a 90-day hiatus, I think it was.
Yeah.
I guess from that point of view, is the market betting on the fact that the Trump administration is walking back away from its threats, or is the market just going, okay, we tested Donald Trump. He obviously didn't have the fortitude to fight us, and he backtracked, or should we be wary?
I personally think we should be wary. I think that an administration that we've seen in the first 100 days has shown it to be, if I could, politely say, very loose with their policy decision making framework. And I think that we were going to continue to see this sort of flip flopping of policy decisions. And you're right, they've deferred this for 90 days, and the markets become excited, but we don't know what's going to happen in 90 days. The Australians, we were getting excited. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Donald Trump, I don't know if you saw the footage, was getting into a helicopter. His hair was going everywhere. It was loud, and there's an Aussie reporter holding a microphone going, Mr. Trump, are you going to, negotiate with the tariffs from Australia? And, our president, our prime minister's trying to give you a call, He goes, yeah, they're calling, we're going to talk to them, I'm like, this is the best that we could come up with, and then he's off on his helicopter, probably go play golf or something. But, yeah, so I think that I think we're going to continue to see volatility. I don't know that we're out of the woods just yet. And I think we just need to, be able to sort of, as investors, be willing to understand that we need to sort of allow the markets to take their course, and at the same time not do things in those wrong moments, because I think that's super important that we don't do that, because that can cost you a lot of money. Like you think of the investor that was sitting there, I don't know, watching their industry super fund. They got no advice relationship, and they're sitting there watching, and every day they're logging on their phone watching their portfolio. I can guarantee you that somewhere around the 6th, 7th, 8th of April, they're making the decision to go, I can't take this anymore, I'm going to cash. And they're still sitting on the sidelines, and they're looking at it. And if they're doing a little bit of homework, they go, hang on a second, the market's bounced 10, 12%. Maybe I should be getting back in. And you know what happens when they do. So this is the notion of, you can't time the market. You just need to be prepared to sort of say, if I'm an investor, I've got that time frame, I need to hang in there from that perspective, as long as I've got my other stuff in order. And that's the work that we do around liquidity and defensive buckets and the like. So I thought, interesting set of numbers. I hope I don't have to bring up those sort of numbers again in a month's time or 2 months' time, but I have this sneaky suspicion I'll be bringing the stats up again at some stage.
Yeah, no, look, and thank you for the sound advice there, mate. I think, look, there is no question. I think what the last month has illustrated is the exuberance of markets. Markets are often irrational, and they're irrational on the upside and irrational on the downside. So if you think about the data that came out when Trump imposed or suggested that he was going to impose a tariff, one could argue and say maybe the reaction was overcooked in terms of how far the markets had fallen on the back of that. Likewise, with with Trump walking back from where they were, or the administration walking back, you could argue and say that the market has gone the opposite way in terms of the exuberance side of things. So it just shows you the irrationality of markets. And I think, the arguments that we always have with our clients, not that we have arguments with them, but when we're sitting down and when we're designing portfolios, the focus on quality, the focus on mandate, the focus on diversification, making sure that you're never taking more risk than what you need to take in order to achieve the outcomes that matter to you. And from that point of view, and I think, provided you do those sort of approaches, you generally navigate your way through these sorts of issues. It's when you start to become a little bit silly or a little bit loose in terms of the mandates, or a little bit, forgetful in terms of what it is you're trying to achieve, then things can kind of go pear-shaped, I guess.
100%, 100%. And I think that, when you look at it at a stock perspective, some of these stocks have bounced back pretty strongly and the like. it's interesting when you dig deep into the data and all of the fundamental analysis, and I won't name stocks, but if a stock was good 12 months ago and had superb cash flow and the like, it's still a good company. There's no reason that it should
Yeah,
have
no
come off
question.
20% in 12 months, in 12 to, in a month's time. So I think that's where as an investor you need to sort of be able to look through that. Look, we've got in case you weren't ready for it, you got some reading to do over the weekend, mate. We've got investment committee coming up on Tuesday. So looking forward to a pretty robust discussion where we sort of lock ourselves away and talk only about markets and portfolios. So it should be good, interesting times.
It is my the favourite day of the quarter, I must admit. So it's always a lot of fun. Now, mate, you mentioned before that we wouldn't talk about company specific, but last night, and I do want to, and I guess this is probably the reality of what we're dealing with. Last night, Apple released some data where they're forecasting a $1.4 billion hit to their bottom line and revenues from that point of view as a result of the tariff situation. So I guess that's the reality of what we're dealing with, from that point of view. Now, as to whether that number is accurate or not, I don't know, but it's just showing you this is the confusion of the markets at this moment in time. So whilst we're trying to avoid talking about specific companies, and we all agree that Apple is a great company from that point of view, it just shows you that the extremities of what's going on in this current marketplace and trying to make a call is really difficult, I guess.
Oh yeah, look, and there's no doubt that the tariffs are going to have a massive effect on particular companies, and that's something that we're sort of very wary of, and that's what a huge number, $1.4 billion,
Mm.
as a hit. And you look at that and you look at some of the behaviors in the background. So this is only about 3 weeks ago. I read an article about Apple flying, I think it was like 600 tons of iPhones from India to the US in preparation for the potential tariffs. So there's a lot going on, and my mate, the comedian who escapes, his name escapes me, that said he was happy for phones to be made in China because he doesn't want to pay $9,000 for an iPhone in the US. I think, I th and I think as simple as a joke like that was, I think that will actually solve itself purely because the people will vote with their voices. At the end of the day, when 70, 80 million people wake up one day eventually and sort of go, my lot's actually no better than what it was before this election, there's going to be problems. So, and I think that when you're in such a large economy with so many people, the noise is not just a little bit of banter and a little bit of a couple of tweets on Twitter. It's a significant amount of backlash, and I think that's why we're seeing some backflips in policies as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now that probably is a nice prelude into Donald Trump, or the Trump administration have just celebrated their first 100 days in power, and I don't think I can recall um, uh, a more significant 100 days by any administration ever, be it in the US, be it here in Australia, from that point of view, in terms of so rapid changing in terms of what they've tried to do. And mindful of the fact that we'll probably, and not probably, we'll have a poll session where we actually dive into this a lot deeper, probably in the next week or two, and we can focus on the 100 days. But if we were to look at the current achievements in that first 100 days from the Trump side of things, Mirko, what do you think they've done well? If you can mention one thing that they've done well, and what do you think they've done probably poorly?
Yeah, look, I think, some of the things that people argue that they've done well is that they were trying to, rid the waste that was going on, inside, particularly around government departments and the like, trying to sort of make some changes around, some of the laws and rules that have been introduced that, as we know, are just completely, insane and sort of getting back to normal, type scenarios. The things that they've done poorly, what they've done on global trade has been a disaster. What they've done with from an immigration point of view, with the mass deportations and the like, and was always going to be the case, you've suddenly got people sitting in jail cells for actually no reason, be it in the US or be it back in the home country. So that's been pretty bad. But I did catch some of Donald Trump's press conference, and one thing he did go to point out was, the election and what Biden had done to the price of eggs, and that he had resolved that, and that there were plenty of cheap eggs around Easter time, and he feels that that was one of his big achievements over the 100 days. I think that yeah, farming may have had a bit to do with that, but that's okay. If that works, we'll run with that.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. I think, if I reflect back on these first 100 days, there is no question that securing the border, and putting a sense of control around the immigration piece, as in people coming into the country, and I think they've done that well from that point of view. And I think, to be honest with you, Mirko, I think that's the right of every country to do. This open philosophy, open door philosophy, you've got to put some controls around that, some measures. And I think they've probably done that well. What I think they've probably hurt, and I think, is democracy in general. Some of the decisions and the way they've gone about making these decisions, I think, are really questionable. And I think thumbing your nose at Congress and at the Senate and ignoring the courts, or testing the courts to say, "I dare you" type thing scenario, I don't think is the right way to operate. And there is a touch of autocratic approach to the Trump administration, which I think is kind of frightening in terms of where the US sat from a democratic principle point of view to where they've actually gone to now is a very different US. So it'll be interesting to see what the next 200 days are. But look, this is something we can explore a lot further in our poll session. Now, I guess as a final topic, and just mindful of time, tomorrow, Democracy Day here in Australia. We get to have a sausage in bread with a bit of sauce, from that point of view, and pass judgment on our political peers out there, the Labor Party, the Liberals, and the Greens, and the Teals, and God knows whoever else is out there in this crazy environment. Okay, for mine, the election campaign has been the most boring campaign I could ever remember by two insipid individuals. I need to be careful because my bias is coming through that I think that they're both incompetent, but that's a separate issue. Are you excited it's all over? And do you think Australia is going to be better come tomorrow evening?
Remember, I was excited last week when I got an email from the electoral office saying that they had approved my postal vote. I got an email last night saying that your vote has been received and done and dusted. So tick, they can't find me. I do tend to agree with you. I think that what we've seen from both parties has been pretty poor, and I don't know that a hell of a lot's going to change. And if you follow the numbers and the polls and the like, it seems like status quo may well be maintained.
Yeah, look, I'm with you on that one. I look, as much as you sit there and you look at what the Albanese government has done versus what Dutton is offering from that point of view, the economic record of the Labor Party doesn't warrant or doesn't deserve another 3-year term, without question, from an economic perspective. But the coalition has not built a compelling case as to why you would elect them either. Now, the question that I put in my own head is, it's not like the coalition didn't know the election was coming up. And when you're not in government, outside of saying no to everything, that gives you an opportunity to come up with policies that you could potentially present to the Australian public, and they've obviously failed in doing so. So it was pretty ordinary in that regard. Mate, I'm aware that you've got an appointment coming up, so I won't go much further. But before we do go, I just want to mention two things. To my Bombers last night, thank you for beating the Kangas. Mirko, I'm really sorry about that. So
No, you're not.
take that. That was a terrible game of football, let me just say that. And to the mighty Liverpool Football Club, thank you. That was the most amazing weekend last week in winning the title. We are now sitting at 20, and we are now the best team in the UK, without any doubt. So
With
thank
4 weeks
you for
to
doing that.
go, and you'll never walk alone. I love it.
Absolutely. All right, to all our wonderful people out there, have a cracking weekend. Enjoy this wonderful, wonderful weather. Mirko, you have a wonderful weekend too. And to all our team, as always, thank you very much. And we'll catch up with you all next week. Cheers, guys.
See you guys. Bye bye.